Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Week 7 preview. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. Got the Ravens and the Bills both on a bye this week. A lot of key injuries to receivers in particular around the league. So you might be shuffling around trying to find your right answers to fill out your lineups this week. We're going to do our best to help you. We're going to run through every single game on the slate for this weekend. We're going to kick things off with the Thursday nighter, AFC North battle between the Bengals and the Steelers. Steelers 4.5 or 5.5 point favorites on the road, depending on where you look. The Bengals likely to be without key edge rusher Trey Hendrickson. So what's been a rough season for the Bengals injury-wise gets worse, especially on the defensive side of the ball here. With this one, obviously, we're going to have Joe Flacco playing against the Steelers in this spot. Your thoughts here, Mario?
It's a weird-looking game for a lot of reasons. Like, I still don't know what to make of the Pittsburgh offense, especially from the passing game side of things. Like, they've gotten DK Metcalf going a little bit more in the past few weeks than they did to start the year, especially downfield, especially with yards after the catch over the middle on these kind of like long crossers. Those kinds of plays, those are always tough to stop, and they needed to get Metcalf going on those. So they've proven the concept a little bit so far of the offense, but they didn't have a second pass catcher second wide receiver as it was. Calvin Austin being out. You have to deal with these Ben Skowronek types. Like Roman Wilson hasn't claimed more there, and I am not convinced that the Steelers can easily get a second passing component going, even against an easy opponent. And I don't know for sure how easy how weak the secondary, the corner rotation specifically of the Bengals is. Like Cam Taylor-Britt getting benched is definitely a bad sign because he's probably their second most talented one. But DJ Turner has stepped up a bit. I don't really know I don't know how to evaluate Josh Newton really yet. Like he's not that athletic, we know that. So, but he might not be. Blott has been quite good the past couple of years. So I could see this being like a low scoring game, and maybe the Bengals are right to be such heavy underdogs. But I think if so, it would be more out of acknowledgement of the Pittsburgh defense, which started the year poorly, especially against the run. But those three down linemen are just crazy good as a trio. And if you have Watt playing like he is, he's kind of been out of his mind the past couple of weeks. Anytime I watched him, Highsmith got back last week. So this Pittsburgh pass rush could any minute become one of the more memorable ones that they've had in some amount of time. And with Joe Flacco, being 46 or whatever he is, that's not going to be easy for him to manage that with the Bengals offensive line kind of being crap too.
Right. So, I mean, I think that, what we saw mostly in like the second half last week, as far as the Bengals offense is concerned, is like a reasonable-ish expectation, maybe a little bit optimistic. Like I think that, if you are an investor in Chase or Higgins, you're still feeling all right there. You know that they're going to at least get the targets, just whether a question as to whether they're actually converted into real production. Chase Brown, it looks like that this is just going to be a lost season for him. Unfortunately, I think there's too much working against him. He's a guy that I think needed some positive tailwinds to really pay off at that early third, early second, even ADP. And then I guess my last question for you on the Steelers side of things, fantasy wise, is what's that backfield looking like in your opinion? Is this a Jaylen Warren week?
I don't think they really want to overwork Warren, even if Warren is the clear starter over Gainwell. I do think though that Warren is the clear one. It's not a 1A, 1B. It's like he's the lead guy, and Gainwell might prove to be pretty good as a second player off the bench, especially in pass catching in space kind of situations. So and it's weird to me in general that Gainwell hasn't gotten going more as a pass catcher in the NFL. Like he was borderline like wide receiver, quality receiver in college. So the 6 catches the past 2 weeks, I think there might be something for Gainwell to build on there. But as the first true starting runner, and including in short yardage situations, I think it's always going to be Warren if he's healthy.
Yeah, I think Warren's if you've got him kicking around, I think he's a strong flex option this week at the very least, maybe even an RB2, depending on your backfield setup. I'm kind of surprised that the over-under is at like almost 45. I think I like the under in this one, but
Yeah.
uh, other than that, I have a hard time getting a read on the spread because it's hard to bet on the Bengals. But Tomlin always plays these close games, especially when he's favored. So probably staying off the spread there as much as I can. Let's get on over to the London game. Are we going to break the cycle and actually give the good people of England a decent game here? We've got the Jags and the Rams with the Rams 2.5 point favorites.
Well, I don't know what to make of like we're assuming Puka Nakua is out, right? Like
Yeah, that's my
he
assumption.
okay, there was I guess if they're not lying about it being like a low ankle sprain and if it's not otherwise notably worse than usual, I really think Nakua might have a chance. It 1 week missed for a non high ankle sprain makes plenty of sense, maybe even two. But as long as you avoid the high ankle sprain, that's the big thing. But if Nakua is not available, of course, that's like a third of the Rams' offense that they have to account for all of a sudden. Even though I do think Jordan Whittington should be a pretty good replacement. Like Whittington might not be useful for most NFL teams, but he really is a pretty good fit for that McVay particular offense that we've seen develop. The one that amplifies the abilities of someone like Nakua on details of ruggedness and being able to like strain the defense by being both like an effective blocker against defensive ends, but also like a threat to run off the bootleg wide open to the corner. So like
Mhm.
there's certain ways that Whittington can plug in and keep the offense the same, despite the likely fact that Whittington won't be able to draw as much share of usage from scrimmage as Nakua did. So the Rams should be kind of okay, but it's going to put more slack, of course, on Devontae Adams and probably the run game. Tutu Atwell doesn't look like a great. Is he practicing? He's limited in practice, so he might be there. But yeah, if Nakua is not out there, if Nakua can't really be what they've come to expect of him, not having Atwell also at the same time would be a little bit harder on them. But I don't know. I feel like the Rams a little bit more serious of a team or a little bit more fully realized of a team. Like they kind of they know what they have to do. They know how they win when they win and how they need to get there. So I think the game, if only because it's international and both the Jags offense is kind of wonky, I'd be worried about the under or some version of a lower scoring game happening here. But I think the Rams' ability to chunk out consistent yardage is a little more proven than the Jaguars. Like the Jaguars basically need ETN to carry them, and
Mhm.
I think ETN is very good, but I'm not convinced that I don't know. And pertinent too that the Rams try to do a money ball thing in terms of run defense. Like their linebackers are basically like they're just not serious starters. So if there's a way that Cohen can kind of isolate those linebackers one on one with ETN on the edge or something like that, that would be a problem for the Rams. But I don't know. I believe the Jags are capable of going like power run offense the way the Rams can behind Avila and Dotson.
Right. So, like last week, for instance, the Ravens were able to get Derrick Henry going on the ground with the power run, but the Jags just have a different look entirely, I think, as far as that run game goes. And they are just very kind of erratic. They don't, you can't really trust them even drive to drive. Like sometimes Trevor Lawrence will look like how he's supposed to, and other times he looks ridiculous out there. So if that Rams pass rush is heating him up, that could be an issue for Jacksonville on the
No
Rams
Strange
side.
hurts too. I mean, they weren't he wasn't like Strange was not carrying the offense or anything, but Brenton Strange was the closest thing the Jaguars have to a vaguely reliable, consistently reliable pass catcher because it's like
Right.
Thomas, even Brown, they're kind of like they're delicate at best, and Parker Washington is often on the bench because they have Travis Hunter out there, and Travis Hunter is not helping them at receiver.
No, he's not. So yeah, that Strange was just like always that nice safety valve
Yeah,
for Lawrence to just kind of like help move the chains on the Rams side of things. Just tying off the Nakua detail. The Rams are on a bye after this week, and Nakua was not practicing as of Wednesday. So it feels like this would be the smart move for the Rams to just try to win this game without Nakua, and just get him back to 100% come week 9. Given that that crazy travel, obviously, and the bye week coming up on the other side of this.
Yeah, fair enough. I just I might have missed something also on the reporting of Nakua's ankle, but if it really is just a low ankle sprain, sometimes like a stiff ankle gets a little better over a couple days. But yeah, if they're at all on the fence about it, then taking the bye week as a tie-breaking consideration makes a lot of sense.
I think so too. I mean, he looked like he was in a lot of pain when that injury occurred on Sunday against Baltimore. Saw him like jogging around on the sideline afterward. I forget if he got back in for a play or two before they shut him down. But I think if I'm the Rams, like I'm just trying to win this game without him as best as we can. The Rams were also, it was kind of cool. They were practicing at Camden Yards this week. There's a picture of Matthew Stafford like on the mound and stuff at Camden Yards. It's good that someone's getting some use out of Camden Yards in October, because God knows the Orioles aren't. Anyway, Sunday main slate. We've got the Saints and the Bears. This is an interesting one to me, just because I'm such a college football nut. You go back a few years, 2021, Caleb Williams is hotshot recruit at Oklahoma. Spencer Rattler, in his own right, a hotshot recruit for the Sooners the year before. And yeah, we see Caleb ultimately take over there for Oklahoma, and then he leaves with Lincoln Riley to go to USC, whereas Spencer Rattler, he dipped out, went to South Carolina. Obviously very different trajectories to get to this point, but it's cool to see them starting against each other on a Sunday here after all of that kind of tumult. I don't know if there's any bad blood between them, but I'm sure that there's some healthy competitive, like wanting to beat one another in this particular spot. And Rattler obviously has clawed his way, I think, relative to preseason perception, into somewhat of a stabilizing presence ish for maybe I'm phrasing that wrong, but the Saints offense isn't as bad as I think it could be otherwise, just because he's back there. And the Bears, I still can't quite figure them out. Swift really seemed to get going this past week against Washington. He was kind of the difference maker in that game. I don't know if I expect that to continue, but at the same time, I don't know if the Saints are the ones to really like stop it necessarily. Their defense isn't that bad though. This is in Chicago. The Bears are 4.5-point favorites. What are we thinking here?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about the Bears. Things still just looked too difficult for Caleb Williams, and that Washington defense is not very good. So as to Swift's breakout game, I think that's just a reminder that DeAndre Swift is at least an average starting NFL running back. Maybe he's not more than that, but as long as you're an average starting NFL running back, which is to basically say a more or less competent NFL running back, you should be capable of having games like Swift had against Washington, because in my opinion, it looked like Washington was just getting like blasted on defense. Swift, there were some plays where it looked like Swift was almost like hesitating for a moment and buffering because there was sort of too many different ways he could go. And I think that's not that I'm like trying to be backhanded towards Swift. It's he is as good as he was in that game. It's just I don't think Washington played very good defense in that one. And like you said, the Saints aren't bad on defense. I think actually the Saints might be curiously close to average, which I know that's not exciting. It's just that there's a difference between average and truly bad. And if
this isn't like the Cowboys matchup a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and if Caleb Williams is going to take kind of simple plays and make them complicated, then that's kind of a dangerous setup, even against just an average defense. So I don't know. The DJ Moore thing is a little bit complicating too. I will note though that Luther Burden, after we all kind of hypothesized that he would have to play in the slot because of Moore on the boundary, Adunze on the boundary, and after Burden mostly practiced in the slot, I want to say in training camp, the little bit that he was active for, he's played mostly on the boundary so far. So he has in 3 wide sets where Moore and Odunze are active in a 3 wide set. It's always been Zacchaeus rather than Burden in the slot, and so Burden has mostly actually played in 3 wide sets where one of Moore or Odunze is not on the field. So that's a pretty specific sub package. And if Moore is unavailable, it simply becomes, in my opinion, that Burden is pretty much starting, or at least playing like 40 snaps, and is playing in especially the 3 wide, because Zacchaeus would have to go in the slot in that case. So chance for Burden to get going here, and I guess if Moore is out, we would kind of get to be fair to Williams, we would get a glimpse of how much of the struggles were related to kind of like DJ Moore in particular, because Burden might give them a little something extra. Not that I mean to assume it's Moore that's the problem. It's just I don't know. He seems like he's not exactly happy there. So I worried like his focus is a little diluted too. And on the other side of the ball, I don't think Rattler's very good. I saw some people are saying, like, he's on Twitter, they were saying like, oh, if he was a higher pick, people would have thought people would be talking about like he's a franchise quarterback or something. You almost like that's stupid even on its face, because like Rattler is a former blue chip prospect. It's not as if there was any lack of incentive or momentum around like the football industry to receive him as this. He's been long prophesied to be a starter. It's not like people are see him as a Rudy type ignorant take. So it's also stupid because it was good that Rattler got his completion percentage up in the last game, but going into the last game, his completion percentage was only like 62, and the yards per attempt at around like 6 yards per pass. Like, that's punting. That's not playing offense. That's punting. So I don't know how exactly the Saints are supposed to do it, but if they can keep the game close, Caleb Williams makes a turnover that he that proves costly, something like that. There's a way the Saints can win. I just I think it would have to be a low scoring scenario.
Let's see. Let's tie off the Luther Burden detail. Like, would you feel comfortable starting him in like a 12-team league, or is he more like a DFS consideration for this week?
Well, I need Moore to be out.
Yeah.
But if Moore is out, I mean, I came really close to starting Ryan Flournoy last week, so I can't say that it's a bad idea for people who are in certain situations. It's just not like it's not a situation you're trying to find your way into.
No. I think that there's a strong likelihood that you have higher floor, higher ceiling options than Burden. I'm not.
I am certainly curious though, and in DFS tournament, absolutely.
Yeah, that's where my head's at with it. Like, I want to get exposure to Burden this weekend. It just probably won't be in my season long leagues. More so a DFS tournament type of consideration. And Moore was not practicing on Wednesday last we heard, and I think he had to stay overnight in Washington on Monday. Sounded like pretty painful issue going on there for him. And lastly, Washington couldn't really run on the Bears last week. Do you think that the Saints can? Because over the course of the season, generally the Bears have been pretty soft against the run.
Right. I still don't see the personnel on the Bears defense that would explain why their run defense was good. I think they kind of are just maybe lucky against Washington. But Alvin Kamara hasn't gotten anything going. Kendre Miller hasn't gotten much more going himself. I don't know how much of that is due to I know there was Cesar Ruiz was missing some time and Penning was missing some time. So the guard spots have been a little wonky for the Saints. But I think the bigger problem is probably that with Rattler at quarterback, defenses just do not care about getting beat downfield. They're just like, we know you're not going to do it, so we're just going to kind of spam in the box because we keep you out of we stop Kamara, we put you in 3rd and 9. We put you in 3rd and 9. You're punting.
Spam in the box, one of the great Alice in Chains songs. Moving on to the next game, but before that, we got a message from our pals at Circa. It's football season, and the best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. Stadium Swim has 3 levels, 6 pools, and a 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner suites to cabanas, daybeds, stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year with temperature-controlled pools. It is a great place to catch the games all season long. Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. We also got a message from our pals over at Blue Wire. Up next, we've got the Dolphins and the Browns. The Browns settling in as 2.5-point favorites at home against the Fins. Oh, Miami, like so close to stealing one against the Chargers. I was like, wow, they actually, kind of bucked up there at the end and showed
Mike
some fight.
McDaniel is good, man. It is so wrong that he's been stuck with this turd sandwich of a team.
I mean, it's so crazy to think that like 2 years ago in like the 2023 season in week 17, they were playing Baltimore for the right to have the number 1 seed in the AFC.
It really is impressive in my opinion that McDaniel got them that close with this this roster that just isn't very good at all, even before Tyreek Hill got hurt. I wonder if almost it's like Tyreek Hill getting hurt actually like raised the team morale or something, and then that's got kind of what gave them that last win, that last gasp to try to take one from the Chargers. I worry now though that the Dolphins kind of thud back down to the dreary depths they were at before the Tyreek Hill injury and whatever like karmic blessings that might have come from that landed on them. That like they're right back to before all that, and they got to play the Browns, which it's like, how are you gonna, even if you want to win, even if you're making like an earnest effort, it's like for what to like the Browns play tough. At least we know it's not going to be fun. We know that if we win, it won't be by very many points, and even if we do win, people will say it's just the Browns. Who cares?
Yep.
So it's in my opinion one of those things where the Browns probably are a little more invested. The players, the coaches. I do imagine the Dolphins people do like McDaniel, but there's just at some point you just sort of feel like hope is lost, and I think the Dolphins have to be close to that point. So especially if they trade, not to go into a rumor tangent, but if Jalen Waddle were traded to the Giants, it's like everybody knows they're tanking and they're firing the coach. So they who knows? It's one of those things you expect some players like Achane, maybe Waddle, maybe Waller, apparently to do something in the game to some useful extent. But that Dolphins pass rush, which is otherwise pretty dangerous, I don't think it's going to get a whole lot of chance to show itself, because I'd imagine Kevin Stefanski is a step ahead and is thinking like, we're gonna run so much you guys don't even feel like chasing the quarterback anymore by the time we're done with you.
Okay, so that I'm glad you brought that up. What were they thinking last week with that game plan where they had Dylan Gabriel dropping back like 43 times in that game? Like that can't be anything close to what they try to do again this week, right?
Right. I think that's kind of just like the nature of a game getting away from you. / they somehow logged 82 snaps on offense. So like some teams don't get 41 snaps in a game on offense, and they got to 82. So it's little fluky details like that. And for a run, for a run first coach, Kevin Stefanski does have a unique tendency to end up with these like 40 pass attempts games, especially with Flacco too. That kept happening. So it's like if you're a quarterback who doesn't run the ball a lot with Stefanski, you sometimes end up with those 40 pass attempt games. I think last week was the only time I guess that Judkins didn't get anything going, because like we were talking about with the Steelers game previously, like the run defense was garbage to start the year, but getting Derek Harmon was huge. And even though their linebackers are still a little bit sketchy, like I still don't really believe in Patrick Queen or Cole Holcomb, and Peyton Wilson's just like a cornerback playing linebacker. But as a team, you can kind of do like that Steve Spagnuolo thing in the playoffs, where it's like they have certain like run stopping plays that they do like run blitzes and get you knocked back a couple of times, get a 2-score lead. Now your running back stuck at 8 carries for 20 yards, and it sort of just stays that way until the game is over. So I think that's kind of what happened to the Browns last week, and
Okay.
I highly doubt. I mean, even in that game, Judkins got 12 carries. So this game, I think Judkins is going over 20 carries, and if that happens, the Dolphins are in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of surface level analysis, but if you have a running back going up against the Dolphins, like and he's on your team, like you feel really good about starting him. I think this could be one of the better Judkins weeks. of the entire season. Last thing on the Browns. What do you do with Jerry Jeudy? I read Matt Harmon's piece this week about receivers that are underperforming relative to the underlying metrics, where Jerry Judy's near the top of the league in routes and everything like that, but as far as targets and everything and opportunities and catches and everything, he's lagging behind. For context, we have him ranked as wide receiver 44 this week. So in this setup where the Browns might really not need to throw all that much, and Jerry Judy's already getting kind of pinched target wise as it is, I'm probably leaving him on the bench. What about you?
Yeah, fair enough. I do think if somehow the Browns keep throwing the ball like 35 plus times a game, then eventually Judy will just sort of benefit from better luck at some point, even if he doesn't actually make any better of a play on his own part. But the basic argument for sticking with Judy is that, and when people talk about metrics indicating that he's sort of due for better fantasy production, they're just talking about his catch rate, really. Like his catch rate, it's 20 out of 48. Last year he was 90 out of 145. So he's normally like a 62, 65% catch rate kind of guy. And right now he's beneath 50%. I'm assuming it's like 44% or something like that. So he's not likely to finish the year with a catch rate beneath 50%. So in that sense, if his target rate maintains, Jerry Jeudy necessarily will have some better games coming up here. It's just sometimes outliers do occur to otherwise, consistent statistical trends. And you could argue that an outlier like Dylan Gabriel would be sufficient to call this an outlier situation, where you would say, like, because of the anomalous details here, the standard laws are not actually observed, and so you can't just assume that Jeudy will fix the numbers. But I will say, I think what I would say about Jeudy in general is it's fair to bench him if you've got some tempting alternative. I don't know what that. There's probably a handful that I would consider justifiable starts over Jeudy. But I also think it's totally justifiable to just stick with him here. Like, these Miami corners really cannot cover him. So I'm definitely worried about the pass rush. But I am also optimistic in this case that even if Judy's target count falls to like 6 or something, there's a pretty good chance. This is the kind of setting where it would make sense for him to correct that catch rate a little bit.
All right, I'll give you a toss up. Because this guy is less stable with his like on-field presence and usage, but he's been productive when given the opportunity this year. So Kayshon Boutte against Tennessee or Jerry Jeudy against Miami.
If it's PPR, especially, I would probably stick with Jeudy. Boutte's problem is the target rate is pretty low because his depth of target is very ambitious at 15.1 yards per target. So depth of target and per snap target rate are usually they're opposite correlated. So the higher the depth of target, the heavier the pressure downward on the targets per snaps. But Boutte's a good player. I think they've gotten a decent player with him, and if they do make it an effort to get him more targets, I think he could do more for them. But in the meantime, I think the Patriots are also content to let Boutte be sort of like their Darius Slayton, decoy go route kind of guy.
Okay. All right. Good summation there. Let's see. Let's move on over. Raiders Chiefs. This is one of the few really big spreads that we have this week. It's pretty tight, pretty much across the board. Almost everything under 5, other than the Patriots going into Tennessee and this one. So Chiefs 11.5-point favorites. It's been it opened at 12. I guess it's bounced around at some shops. ESPN Bet has it at 12.5. Oh, I mean, I think, mostly as a function of it being the only 405 kick last week. It was kind of in its own world. I watched way too much of that Raiders Titans game, and the Raiders are awful to watch. And I know that like in the last couple of years they've given the Chiefs a run for their money at Arrowhead. They beat them on Christmas 2 years ago and almost pulled that off on a Black Friday last year. That was like when the Chiefs voodoo magic was really cooking at full temp. But regardless, the Chiefs last week got it done against the Lions. The Raiders technically got it done against the Titans, but I think that this spread is reasonable given these two sides. So, your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's a big deal that Rashee Rice is back. I think the fantasy industry sort of took on a near editorial consensus that, or not, I guess it's not true. There was some plurality of the fantasy industry that was like Xavier Worthy is he's the number one receiver for the Chiefs. He's a better receiver than Rashee Rice, and that injury kind of put that hypothesis on hold. And um, now with Rice really back, we'll get to see who's going to play what roles. And in my opinion, it was always very clearly the case that Rashee Rice is the wide receiver 1 on this team, and Xavier Worthy very likely the wide receiver 2, and maybe even some amounts closer to Rice than I would expect in the end of year fantasy points and everything. But the basic way you use a guy like Rice versus the basic way you use a guy like Worthy dictates that Rice will be targeted much more often. I know that Xavier Worthy's target rate was good last year, but it was informed by a lot of anomalous conditions that are no longer present. Namely, the Chiefs actually have some wide receiver depth. I was definitely worried after Worthy got hurt that they didn't, because you see, Tyquan Thornton, you're like, what, that guy?
Yeah.
But it's actually it's funny, Tyquan Thornton was a totally decent prospect coming out of Baylor, and he got phased out of New England because they basically had a distaste for his sort of fragile game. Tyquan Thornton will never be the guy you send over the middle for any reason. He really is just a go route, post route, corner route kind of guy. But he is comfortable on those kinds of routes. Sorry to make it a Darius Slayton podcast, but it's like he's a good player, and he's all the way down at wide receiver 5 now as like a totally competent field stretching kind of player with rare speed that the safeties have to pay attention to. So with Rice coming back, it's like Thornton's way down at 5. Travis Kelce's having, I think, a little bit more steady of a year, at least to start the year he did compared to 2024.
Yep.
The Chiefs offense looks more balanced now than it has in some amount of time. And I think the slack that fell on Worthy last year is completely gone by now. Now they have the luxury of using him more like a targeted big play specialist and a decoy, and somebody that can dictate the coverage based on where they line him up and who they tell him to run at. So you can basically force a defense to behave a certain way when you're not dependent on using a guy like Worthy from scrimmage. And with Rice there, with Hollywood Brown there, with Thornton even hanging around, it's like there's all these ways that the Chiefs can kind of apply pressure to the defense for the first time in years. And I think Rice is kind of what kicks the door down.
Yeah. So I think for anyone that's been like starting Hollywood Brown, I'm worried about his usage. Not now that Rice is back. I just think that Rice, pre-injury and his rookie year was such like a target monster. Like when you have Kelsey and you have Rice like just taking up that much oxygen, it's going to be a little bit difficult on a week to week basis to project. Worthy to a lesser extent, but of course Thornton and Hollywood Brown, I'm worried about their ceilings and week to week usage going forward.
Yeah, Brown had already been reduced to kind of like a wide receiver 3. What I guess we'll find out is how much Juju Smith-Schuster keeps playing, because Smith-Schuster was on the field the second most or the most each of the past 3 weeks, but he doesn't draw targets and not in the same types of targets as Brown, Thornton, Worthy, and probably Rice. But in the event that Rice displaces Smith-Schuster rather than Brown, I guess Brown could keep being useful that way, but it's definitely, there's a good chance that it's Brown who goes to wide receiver 4 rather than Smith-Schuster.
I think that the image of Juju getting pulled by his ear like a misbehaving child last week, I'm cutting him right there. The image is too much for me.
Yeah, he's got the TikTok stuff is all very cursed also. So yeah, Juju's not someone that I'm like, I certainly wouldn't have him on the roster if I was the Chiefs, but I guess they have some reason for keeping them around.
Yeah, they do. They do. We have Rashee Rice as wide receiver 16 for this week. I did get a question. Yeah, I think you plug him right back in right away.
No question, you start him.
especially against the Raiders. I think that this is going to be a great reintroduction for him. On the Raiders side, his Bowers injury continues to linger. He's got a PCL issue.
That sucks.
Yeah, I mean, my
And that's what
RIP to my
followed Keenan
fishbowl
Allen
team.
his entire last year at California.
Mhm. And obviously that sapped him a bit. And Bowers in this case, I'm not optimistic about him being out there. So I mean, I guess that puts Michael Mayer somewhat on your radar, maybe in like 2 tight end formats.
I say
But
1 tight end. I mean,
okay,
Mayer's good, but
he is good.
it's really bad for the Raiders to not have Bowers though.
Yeah, I mean that just kind of like crumples their offense, and sounds like Jacoby Myers might even be on the trade block.
I
What do
hope
you
so.
do with Ashton Genty for this week? Still
I'd
firing him up probably, but
Yeah, I'd
lowered
start him.
expectations.
Well, in PPR, I wouldn't even lower my expectations that much. I think he could catch 6 passes in this game, even if the Raiders abandon the run. But I think the likely outcome is something like, I don't know, 15 carries for 45 yards, maybe a touchdown, and then, like 5 or 6 catches for 60 yards or something.
Yeah, I mean they're going to be playing from behind for so much of this game that I think that this sets up really nicely for him as like to rack up like the empty calorie dump off targets, but
And
not
they'll
expecting
run
like
like draw plays and stuff, even when they're throwing to catch up. So there's not many cases that I would consider benching Genty this week, especially if it's PPR.
okay. I was wondering about the game script maybe hurting things. Plus, that the Raiders offensive line is not generating a ton of push. I was frustrated last week watching Genty against the Titans. It's just like he's getting no help on these, even
Yeah.
against the Titans. It's like, come on, man. But not his fault. He's still getting the usage. Still good to go for this week. We have him as a high end RB2 at RB14 for us this week. Really interesting game coming up here in the NFC. We've got the Eagles and the Vikings. Vikings obviously coming off the bye, and the Eagles coming off the mini bye after they got kind of pantsed by the Giants last week. We were talking about that game, and I was mostly making the argument that I just didn't trust the Eagles to cover more than a touchdown against anybody right now. And
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see that coming. However, I mean, they got bullied. Basically, they got bullied at their own game.
Yeah. I don't understand how it got so bad for them so fast. And I don't understand why certain things are so difficult for them. To me, no matter how bad Jalen Hurts plays, and he has played poorly, in my opinion, like it's really annoying too how he went from kind of like quiet to like boastful and kind of like self-righteous as a personality in the span of like 2 months. It was like before it's just never heard from Jalen Hurts at all. He knew he was an underdog. He kind of just, just kept quiet and tried to grind through it. A totally good underdog story. And then he has to do that stuff where he starts doing that stuff that teams that win too much start to do, where they're like, no, they said that we couldn't do it. I'm constantly disrespected. No one gives me enough credit. And then it's like even at the time, it's like, well, dude, that's because good for you, but you're a product of the system. Like you're a really good runner. You play really well within the Eagles scheme, but AJ Brown and Devontae Smith is why you have the passing numbers you do. And having a 2,000-yard runner in the backfield doesn't make it too hard on you either. The offensive line, the list goes on. So for Hurts to just completely play awful, and I know it doesn't quite look that way in his numbers, but I think it's pretty clear that both of the last 2 weeks, the Eagles offense has spun its wheels, wasted time trying to get dink and dunk throws going for Hurts as if to like pad his stats and like demonstrate that they can throw the ball if they, or even, trying to like, even dumber yet, maybe trying to force targets to Brown and Smith on dink and dunk plays. Like that's not how you use those guys. And it's not an organic way to run that offense. The organic way to run that offense is to leverage that ground game, establish it, and leverage it in a way that dictates these, more downfield targets for these explosive receivers you have, because that fundamental tension between the downward pull of the run game and the vertical threat of those receivers spreads the defense thin. And if you're running an offense pragmatically, you're basically taking the spots where the defense spreads itself thinnest. And instead, what the Eagles have done is just this like idiot offense the last 2 weeks, and they have nothing to show for it. The general theme of not running the ball enough with Barkley is, I guess, the single greatest indicator of this, the presence of this idiot offense, because like, how can you make this so difficult to give the ball to the guy who ran for 2,000 yards, him having 18 carries over the last 2 weeks and them struggling the way they have? It's like, what did you expect to happen? You had a thing that worked, and then you went away from it to pad stats and to like try to whatever, make the greasy wheel happy or whatever. Like, just get some points. If you keep getting yardage and points, everything else will work itself out, even if Jalen Hurts is a terrible passer. But if you're going to make Jalen Hurts, the terrible passer, take on the defense without a run game, you're going to lose.
It's I brought this up last week too on the Eagles front with Kevin Patullo, where it just feels like they are constantly trying to overcorrect for previous mistakes. I mean, like the squeaky wheel thing with AJ Brown going into the Broncos game, they throw it a million times and they end up losing that game. Saquon had
it's arrogant
like 6
to do that,
carries
by
in
the
that
way.
game.
Saying like,
Yes.
yeah, we can just run our offense. We can play with one hand behind our back and still beat you. Whoops, actually, I guess we couldn't.
Yeah, and then last week opening drive against the Giants, they ran all over them. Great drive. I think they scored a touchdown, and it's like, yeah, just keep doing that until like the Giants prove they can stop it, and they just kind of stopped themselves. It was a totally bizarre outing from this Eagles team. So this. Right. I mean, it's still early. It's October 16th as we record this, but this smells a little bit more like the 2023 Eagles than the 2024, where they're just constantly like just kind of button mashing, and it ultimately it just ends in lackluster performances and frustrating ones, of course, from the fantasy perspective. And then you got to go up to Minnesota, face a rested Vikings defense that has had a couple weeks to prepare. Like that's doubly concerning, I think, for Philly here.
Yeah, another problem for Philadelphia this year that I don't think they even were subject to anything like this in 2023, but last year, the part of why they won the Super Bowl is that they were so strong across all the cornerback reps. And when you have Vic Fangio, a defensive coordinator who doesn't really, he doesn't do that many ambitious things with his coverages exactly. He kind of banks on his pass rush, making the corner play sort of like a moot question. But this year, while Quinion Mitchell is very good and while Cooper DeJean is very good in the slot, rather than Darius Slay, they have a Dory Jackson or Keely Ringo playing pretty much every rep, and Vic Fangio doesn't really do anything more to hide them. So Carson Wentz is, of course, not a good starting quarterback, and he straight up filled his diaper in that was it another London game? I can't remember.
He played against the Browns in London.
Yeah, where they came back on the field for a potentially game-winning drive, and you could just see he was just like sick to his stomach. He was like, I don't want to have to win this game. Oh no. And he played exactly as bad as a guy who looked like he was yipped out of his mind on that drive. But when he's not yipped to such horrible extents as that, Carson Wentz has been, I don't know, not good exactly, but better than JJ McCarthy. So I'm not sure that the Eagles defense can be considered the favorite, even with Carson Wentz, the quarterback. And yeah, and I don't know how bad it can get on offense for the Eagles. And in a certain sense, you'd say it can't be this bad forever. Like obviously AJ Brown is going to get more than 50 yards on his next 20 targets, but I don't know, maybe not. Maybe they're in such a weird place. Maybe that there's a unique dysfunction occurring here. But I picked the Vikings to win this, I think, because not that I want to pick on Carson Wentz to beat anybody, but the Eagles just kind of seem like a mess, and it's like the defense that they leaned on so much the last 2 years isn't even there anymore.
It does help that I think Jalen Carter is going to be back this
It
week,
does
so
help,
that
yeah.
helps the Eagles. Obviously that was a big deal last week, and season opening game against the Cowboys. Takes himself out of the game before the first offensive snap for the Cowboys, I think it was. So, and Javonte Williams ran all over them, so he's gonna be back. That helps, but ultimately, I have trouble trusting the Eagles as road favorites right now. I too am on the Vikings. Let's get on over to probably the game of the week. We got the Panthers and the Jets. Panthers 1-point favorites in this one on the road in the Meadowlands. Say your piece, sir.
Oh yeah. Well, I feel bad for Aaron Glenn. He's way over his head right now, and the Jets GM, who was not hired along with Glenn, they were hired separately. I think it's pretty clear the Jets GM, since the whole offseason, has been looking to tank and look ahead to next year. And if they end up moving like Breece Hall, then I think it's pretty clear that this team is not even supposed to win at that point. But as much as I like him, Glenn is not helping things. I mean, he definitely looks lost out there, and I'm not sure how prepared he was for any of this. I would have thought you would be particularly prepared for the possibility of Justin Fields struggling as a passer if you were going into the year with Justin Fields as your quarterback and Josh Reynolds as your wide receiver too. I would have thought you had a countermeasure. Like we were like, well, we know he's going to struggle, but that's why we got this backup plan where we're going to run the ball so much and so well and this and that, and it'll all add up okay. There's no way this could have added up okay with the approach that they're taking, and they seem to kind of just try to whatever. They were trying to run kind of like the Detroit offense without the Detroit personnel, but more importantly, in this last game, Justin Fields was just a mess. I don't understand how he looked really on time and natural against the Steelers in week 1, but if you watch this game last week with Fields, it's like, I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback play worse than that, especially because there was literally like a dozen plays, like a dozen pass plays where there were guys not open for like wide open touchdowns or anything, but open enough to maybe get you within conversion range, a 3rd and 1, something like that. And he's late on every single one of them. Every single one. He's late every single time. And it's like, how do you see this look so many times and every single time be late the same amount of time every time? Just adjust it, you just count the beats and throw it when you get between the beat counts, like just do something to alter your rhythm. And Fields just kept doing the exact same thing over and over and over. Maybe he was just yipped out of his brain like Carson Wentz was, and that game-winning drive in that almost game-winning drive in Europe. Maybe Fields will get over it over the course of practice this week, but I kind of doubt it. I think if anything, he's done this scenario enough times by now this year that he's starting to sort of like settle into the expectation of it happening again. Garrett Wilson, if he's able to play going against JC Horn, I would definitely bet on Garrett Wilson to win that normally, but with the Fields delay factored into it, I don't know. And meanwhile, it's like, I don't know, the Panthers at least should be able to run the ball. I think that the Jets should be able to run the ball too, but I don't think they're as competent at it. I don't think they're as committed to it as the Panthers are. And Evero Giro, good defensive coordinator, so I don't expect the Panthers defense to ever underachieve really. So yeah, I think Bryce Young is terrible, but and Tetero McMillan might very well get kind of blanked by Sauce Gardner, but the Panthers can run, the Jets only sometimes can and oftentimes abandon it anyway.
Yeah, so for the record, I'm not expecting Wilson to be out there where I have him. I'm ready to bench him basically for this week. Did not practice on Wednesday. We'll see what Thursday's report says, but it is one of the bigger, I think, fantasy storylines for this week, oddly enough, is what's up with the Carolina backfield, because Rico Dowdle has just feasted the last 2 weeks, albeit against two of the worst defenses in the NFL. But the Jets have proven to also be bad defensively. But now we have a chance where Dowdle doesn't have the monopoly to this backfield anymore, depending on Chuba Hubbard's status here. Looked like he was a limited participant on Wednesday. Dave Canales said that he looked good, did Hubbard. So I don't know, like if you have Hubbard or you have Dowdle, how are you approaching it this week?
I would probably be starting Dowdle if I had him. And I think even though he played really well the last 2 weeks, it's still pretty clearly more attributable to the defenses than the player, because Dowdle had the same or worse numbers as Hubbard coming into those 2 games, and then Hubbard, had to miss the two easiest matchups in the first 6 weeks. But to me, it still is one of those things where if you're the Panthers, you should keep Hubbard out until he's fully healthy. And I can't tell if they're more so kind of trying to rush him back, or if Hubbard wants to rush back because he sees Dowdle producing like this. Like, hey, Dowdle has a long injury history and fumbling history himself. There's a reason he couldn't stay on the field at South Carolina and had to share the field with a bunch of these, sub NFL talents. So it is, to me, one of those things like, yeah, wear out Dowdle for now, especially if doing so lets you get Hubbard back healthy. But if Hubbard is back healthy, I do think he's still the better player than Dowdle, and the idea that Dowdle would like start over Hubbard and make Hubbard a backup. It's one of those things like the Panthers are free to do it, but go look at their numbers. Like Dowdle did not look nearly so good until those two defenses came up on the schedule.
Yeah, so based on just how they've performed it against running backs, the defenses that the Panthers faced so far, the 8th, 22nd, 4th, and 5th, those were the first 4 games that Chuba Hubbard was healthy for, and then 26th and 28th between Miami and Dallas. So it's definitely been a function of opportunity plus matchup, really kind of setting up these amazing couple of weeks for Rico Dowdle. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. I have a league where I'm really considerate, and my foot's kind of to the fire because like I kind of want to start Jalen Warren on the Thursday game against the Bengals, but that what do you really want to
Versus
leave
Hubbard?
someone versus Dowdle?
Oh yeah, if it comes down to those two, that's kind of like tough spot, even though it's a good problem to have. Because I do think Dowdle is someone you generally want starting. It's just kind of like the question in that case is like how good is Warren's matchup that we need to like maybe consider an exception there. Yeah, that's a tough one because I do think Dowdle should have another good game against the Jets. Like the
Yeah.
Panthers need to run and run well and run a lot every single week, So even if Hubbard's playing, I think the model for the Panthers is pretty clearly like, try to have Bryce Young throw the ball as little as possible. If you could get 15 carries to each of Dowdle and Hubbard, you do it. But in Warren's case, it's like you don't have to worry so much about it. Like I don't think Gainwell plays even 25 snaps, so I'd probably go with Warren, but it's not an easy one to get right in my opinion.
Yeah, the images of D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart in the Carolina backfield dance across my mind. But I will figure it out hopefully by sometime before kickoff on Thursday night of that Steelers Bengals game. Before we get on over to our next matchup, we've got a message from Mega Sports Progressive. Elevate your game with the ultimate sports contest, Mega Sports Progressive. Dive into the world of excitement with 3 progressive jackpots and a chance to win big every week and every month. We're rewarding 1,500 lucky winners, distributing over $50,000 in monthly prizes. All you have to do is answer 15 daily sports props. Add up your correct responses for the week's cash prizes and tally the week's totals for huge monthly cash rewards. Megasports Progressive makes it fun and easy to join. This is a thrilling opportunity to be part of our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Sign up today and unlock a chance to win big every day, every week, every month. Sign up is free, no commitments, no credit cards. Your first 9 days to play are free. Visit megasportspro.com today. We also got a message from our friends over at Chalkboard. Cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already unlocked or locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 in a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get in the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONFL, that's ROTONFL, to get $20 free with no deposit required. Next up, what do we got here? We've got the Patriots and the Titans. So the Patriots are obviously rolling right now. They sit atop the AFC East. They are about a touchdown favorite against the Titans, who just freshly fired Brian Callahan. And I think Bill Callahan has since left the team, understandably. Mike McCoy, a name I had completely forgotten, I believe is the interim there for the Titans.
Where do they find these like substitute coach guys? These guys,
I know, right?
I run this. I run the interim circuit mostly.
Yeah.
I don't think the Titans are going to play hard for McCoy or whatever, but NFL players will hold some amount of personal pride usually. And if one of those people is Jeffrey Simmons, then it's like, okay, I guess the defense will pretty much show up because he's always a problem when he's on. But I don't think there's that much you can repair about the offense, especially of the Titans. Like, as much as I think Callahan was an awful hire, and people can check the tape on that. I complained on this show quite a bit about that one. And yet I can't really blame him that much for how specifically bad this team is. I mean, the personnel is trash. The people running the team have made a team that is supposed to be bad. Why wouldn't it be bad? So I kind of don't get firing him, honestly, especially if it's like we're going with McCoy now. It's like, what's the point? But the issue is still, in any case, that the wide receivers are not particularly good. The tight ends, the wide receivers are not good enough to lift up Ward, who probably isn't that good. Sorry to say. I mean, I'd like to be wrong. I hope he turns out to be good, but I kind of doubt it. It's been worse than like the Levis experience. Like we assumed like, well, it can't be as bad as Levis was, and I mean, Levis is he's a dog. He's a dog with a football helmet on. Like, Cam Ward has to be better, and it just wasn't true yet. So I don't know what player on the Titans offense you circle and say like, this is the one whose numbers can get better now. Like, I don't see that player there. Tyjae Spears, I doubt it. I don't know. I saw some people are kind of talking about him a little bit. And the 5 catches or whatever, it's nice, but that's one guy who cannot scale up as a runner if Pollard is on the field. And Pollard was probably getting a bit of a breather last week because he was overworked so badly the year and a half before that. So I think Pollard is a better receiver than Spears too. I don't know what Spears is supposed to do. It's like this offense is just a crater to me.
I tweeted out on Sunday during, again, that Titans Raiders game. I don't know why I spent so much time on that one. But I'm like, I feel bad for Cam Ward. I watch him for 3 hours every Sunday, and he's just getting his butt kicked, and there's literally nothing to be done about it. And I think you kind of backed up that point. Like, that there's no like spark that's going to come from this coach firing. I don't think it's certainly
they can
not.
Only run more and just try to like overtly just trying to hide Ward from harm. Like, that's go into a shell. That's all I can think of. I don't know what else they're supposed to do.
No, they got to go turtle mode. On the Patriots end, what are we looking at here? I mean, are you going to have DFS interest even in the Patriots, given that they're playing this Titans team?
A guy like Stephon Diggs, especially coming back from that ACL from last year, you would think, wouldn't you, that he's more of a emergency situation, high stakes situation kind of player that you bring out, and when you're playing a team more like the Saints or the Titans, maybe you just don't use Diggs quite as much, or at least you certainly don't use your best tricks that you have for Diggs in a game like that. Creating the slack that creates room for Kayshon Boutte have the big game last week. I think if Boutte can't have a big game here, not that I would assume he can't. By the way, the Tennessee corners are not good. The one good one they have, they don't let play because they don't let Roger McCreary out of the slot. So they'll have like Jalen Armour Davis playing 65 snaps and McCreary playing only 35, even though McCreary is better. It's crazy. But Boutte can beat those corners for sure. The issue, I think, for a guy like Boutte is that with like we talked about before, his depth of target being so high, it makes it easy for him to go cold for stretches. And against a busted defense, it's like even Mac Hollins might be able to make some plays, So I would, if I had to place a bet, it would be that Boutte or Hunter Henry has a good game here, because I'm kind of assuming Diggs isn't necessary. As much as I assume that it's like anybody. Apparently DeMario Douglas can play football again. So there's a lot of people who can get a stab at this, and I don't think that the Patriots are really compelled to do anything in particular.
Yeah, and I do wonder if Vrabel's going to want to kind of like rub them into the dirt extra hard this coming Sunday.
Amy Adams
Uh,
Strunk should pay for these crimes that she has waged on the Titans organization.
yeah, it's about to be a pretty brutal one, I think, for Tennessee. Let's get on over Giants Broncos, a sneaky, interesting one out in Denver on Sunday. The Broncos, I misspoke. They are also big spread this week. They are 7-point favorites against the Giants. We've seen the Giants play well at home, obviously, under Jackson Dart. Like they beat the Chargers, they beat the Eagles. They looked really bad against the Saints. Can they take this show on the road against a Denver team that obviously played overseas last week? But I don't know. I mean, this is I think I'm inclined to take the points. That could be foolish, but your thoughts here on this matchup?
I'm taking the Broncos to cover, and of course, could look foolish for that. But to me, Jackson Dart hasn't proven anything at all, and I think you can have the belief at once that that is true, and also give him credit for playing well to this point. Like, I would not say Jackson Dart lacks for moxie or courage, and certainly he's
No.
demonstrated that he's willing to run however many times it takes to get the offense where it needs to go. But I don't think these things were questions beforehand. Like, we knew he was tough and he could run. What I didn't know beforehand, and what I don't think is addressed yet either, is how well can he play like bread and butter NFL passing football? Like, can he make routine, simple plays that are there? Can he keep an offense on schedule? Or is it more so going to be a situation where he has to, like in the Eagles game, that good throw that he made to the right sideline after getting out of the pocket? Like, that's a good play. And it was a play they needed him to make that at that moment, and he did. But usually that play won't be there quite that way. Usually when you're improvising like that, Wan'Dale Robinson doesn't reverse field and get to the right side while you're sort of just hanging out in the pocket. It's like, you need to more so assume that play won't be there and ask yourself the question, like, so how do we move the ball anyway? And I think the more a quarterback, especially in a young quarterback, is exposed to NFL defenses, the more defenses figure out how to put you in binds that make you answer questions like those. And I'm not convinced that, as much as Dart might not get that real crunch, that real NFL adjustment to your game, maybe it doesn't happen this week. But I think the venue and the defense that he's going against raises enough complications in
Yeah.
itself that I don't. I think even if Jackson Dart plays the absolute best that he can here, it's still going to be extremely difficult.
Yeah, I think you've persuaded me. I think my thinking on taking the points was more so because I'm skeptical of the Broncos offense.
Yes, that is totally reasonable though, and yeah, Bo Nix does need to be careful around that pass rush. So I'd imagine Sean Payton is planning on a run heavy game. As much as Payton is always quick to take to take opportunities to sort of juice Bo Nix's stats, I don't think this is a place where they can assume that opportunity would be there. I think more so they need to assume they can lean on their defense and J.K. Dobbins to sort of just claw their way to a field position advantage that they sort of just sit on the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I could see some mistakes from Dart on the other side, like setting up the Broncos in good position, and then you get Dobbins going, and it takes care of business. But I think there's also a reason why this game is having a 40.5 on its over under. So expecting not a ton of offensive fireworks. I guess people would want to know your thoughts on Scadaboo in this particular matchup with the setup being what it is against a good Broncos defense, and the potential of Dart maybe needing to be hidden a little bit here.
Yeah, I think Scadaboo is really good. I know there's been a lot of uh, takes that people suggesting on the internet, like, this guy's going to burn out. He's a crazy person. B is definitely true. He's completely
Yeah.
insane. You see these stories of, God, it was so funny how there's that one ESPN article where there were like 4 or 5 different players who all talked about Scadaboo, and they said curiously, they all said the phrase or some phrase to the effect of, "He's wrong a lot." And like that's just such a funny thing to mention first about something. Like, yeah, factually he is often incorrect, and then somehow that happened enough visible times that everybody thought to mention it first at different places. So that's, I don't know. It's like they ask on film, like, Cam, what kind of asking the group, like, what is this coverage here? And Scadaboo just blurts out like it's Pikachu or something. And like, no, it's not. Shut up. I don't know how he became so known for being an idiot, but he's to quote Ricky LaFleur, or rather, Ricky LaFleur said, "I'm smart at hockey." He's like, Cam Scadaboo is smart at playing running back.
Yeah, man. Whatever it is, he's got it. I think his the lack of distractions from anything else going on in his mind, I think it makes him a better running back. Like he's not worried about the fancy stuff. He's just, I'm gonna go forward. I'm gonna go forward as much as I can.
What is that thing? I don't know what show it was, but there's the it might have been The Simpsons or something, where there's just, they go into someone's head and it's just like a cartoon mouse clanging cymbals together or something.
Yep, that's Homer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So Scadaboo has that, but it's like the mouse is just running with a football like through furniture and stuff.
It rules. I thoroughly enjoy it, so I'm glad to see him like starting to cook as a rookie. Let's get on over. Really interesting game here. We've got Indianapolis going out to LA to face the Chargers. This one, close to a pick 'em here. We've got the Chargers 1.5-point favorites at home. The Chargers obviously had to kind of like steal that one at the end from the Dolphins, and Indianapolis. You're a little survivor anecdote for anyone who cares. Probably not that many people, but in my survivor pool, everybody had the Packers and everyone used the Packers, and I used the Packers earlier this season, so I had to go hunting for another option, and I landed on Indianapolis. And boy, that was a sweat. That got way more interesting than I was anticipating. I mean, no Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison gets banged up, and all of a sudden it's still, Arizona's very much in position to win that game at the end. That scared the crap out of me. It doesn't necessarily change my opinion on Indianapolis so much. This is a real any given Sunday type of league, of course, but yeah, that was terrifying. Glad I don't have to trust Daniel Jones again, because I have burned them in Survivor. Regardless, how do they stack up against this Chargers team?
I took the Colts to win this pretty much because the Chargers offensive line I expect to be an ongoing mess, and the Colts have a really solid front four, in my opinion. Like, it's not like kicking the door good, but DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart is about as solid as a outside of like the Lions defensive tackle rotation. You won't find guys who are as good at holding the center lanes as much as those two. And then they got three. Eventually, I expect Timo Loa. Oh, sorry, I don't know how to say. I expect that guy to eventually get going, and I think it speaks to their depth in the. I think it speaks to their depth in the meantime. Ebikum is a third guy off the bench, edge rushing. There's a lot of ammo the Colts have in the front four, and I don't think the Chargers can withstand it at all in the passing game. I think the Chargers need to run, and if you need to run into DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, like, you're just in a difficult position. So I think as much as Justin Herbert and the star factor that he poses can kind of take over the game for the Chargers, I think anything less than that, they're realistically in a difficult spot. But I will say, Rondé Gadsden getting going is pretty interesting. I don't know what to make of it exactly, just because it seems kind of quickly that they went from healthy scratching him to saying, like, actually he's our lead tight end, and like Disley played a certain amount but barely anything as a passer. Tyler Conklin was basically a healthy scratch. So Gadsden is a new detail, and maybe it's in response to just, we can't pass block long enough to get these deep crossers to McConkey like we did last year. We need to start hitting some earlier targets, some easier targets, so we can avoid some sacks, at the very least, avoid some incomplete passes. So maybe Gadsden going as like an intermediate over the middle kind of thing is a strategic response to those pass blocking struggles. But in the meantime, I can't really expect Kamani Vidal to have a big game against this Colts front four for the reasons that I already said. But I do think Kamani Vidal is good, and I think he showed last week. It's like, yeah, I pretty much should have been playing this entire time. I would have been playing this entire time if I had been, a 4th or a 3rd round pick instead of a 7th or whatever he was. The real thing, the bigger question yet, though, to me is like, what exactly is going on with Keenan Allen? Because he only played 36 snaps last week, and Trey Harris played 53. Keandre Lambert-Smith also played 18. And if you look at Keenan Allen's numbers over the year now, they are pretty much garbage, aside from like the high target per snap rate, 51 targets on 250 snaps. But what you're seeing, and I don't know if the Gadsden getting going is maybe a little bit in response to this realization, the usage with Allen was not healthy for the offense. That was a picture of an offense with a limp. And it's like, I guess it's better than falling over entirely, but like a 66% completion rate at 6.2 yards per target is not how you want to spend 51 of your targets. You have to find a way to reallocate that usage.
You do. And then I think additionally, we'll have to keep an eye on Quentin Johnston's status going into this one. His absence last week, I think, opened the door for those rookies, Harris and Keandre Lambert-Smith, to get on the field, not necessarily do a ton. I guess, last week was huge for McConkey. I think people were starting to get restless if they invested an early 3rd round pick in him. He obviously had the awesome game. I think that was coming. And I think it certainly helped playing against the Dolphins, but will be interesting to see in a much tougher matchup if Quentin Johnston is back, how much it carries over this week. Like, I'm still starting McConkey where I have him.
They should prioritize McConkey. I think his big game last week. Yeah, that's part of the thing too with Allen's usage. Is like, if you're the Chargers, you had to look at that first month or so and be like, we have to take some of these targets from Allen and do get them to McConkey, and B, maybe Gadsden. But if they, I think there's a plenty good chance the Chargers win the game, even though I'm picking the Colts. Like, I don't want to make this call because Daniel Jones could have similar issues if Jonathan Taylor can't get running off tackle, because I think Jamari Caldwell, Jatir Tart are pretty much shutting it down in the interior. However, the edge run defense for the Chargers has been pretty bad. So if there's something to get going there, Shane Steichen might be able to find it. But if they don't find that, then Daniel Jones is pretty much in the same situation as I was describing for Herbert, except Herbert's a way better player.
Right, exactly. So that is something to watch once things get rolling there. But I think Indianapolis, like their fantasy outlook is always kind of like pretty consistent week to week as far as who the cast of characters are for the most part. Good notes there on the Chargers and their maybe inability to set the edge a little bit. Let's get on over. We've got the Packers going to the desert to face the Cardinals. Packers 6.5-point favorites on the road here.
Yeah, I still don't have a great sense of who the Packers actually are, just because I feel like Jordan Love goes through a lot of different iterations from time to time.
We were really, or the we is in like the whole like football community was really quick to anoint the Packers the best team in football just because of week 1. It seemed like.
Yeah, and week 1, it wasn't like a meaningless thing, certainly, but that's why we mention every year in week 1 the 2000 Ravens Jags game. But
yes.
Sometimes things go exact opposite of the way it looks from week 1. I don't know, but I don't mean to say like I don't mean to say Love is bad exactly. It's just like I don't think he's good enough to carry the team, and I think there was like the expectation on him, and there was the contract, of course, kind of aiding the expectation that he's a star quarterback who, and once you have a star quarterback in the modern NFL, you have to make your entire offense about passing the ball or whatever. And that definitely was, that would have been too much. That's an unfair expectation for a guy like Love. But if he can be like the one that played against Dallas, and for the most part this year, Love has been pretty well in control. If he could be that, then yeah, the Packers should be able to be a really tough team, one that is more or less as good as they were in week 1. And more importantly for this case, a team that should take care of business pretty easily with minimal complications against a team like the Cardinals, who are just bad. But I do worry about Love like complicating things a little bit. I worry about LaFleur making Green Bay's margins needlessly close by putting lesser players on the field instead of just making the offense about getting the ball to the best players. LaFleur takes the exact opposite approach of that. Sometimes it helps to have a strategy where like the element of surprise is you don't know how we're going to use these guys, but sometimes it's like we need a first down. Get the ball to Tucker Kraft, get the ball to Matthew Golden, get Wicks out of the way, get Malik Heath out of the way. And when LaFleur instead takes the opposite approach, I think they make it that much easier for a crap team like the Cardinals to hang around in a game. So I worry about the Packers covering against pretty much anyone when they're expected to win by more than like 4 points or whatever. But I'll be disappointed with the Packers if this is a close game at all.
Yeah, no, they the Cardinals, that should have been like kind of, or it's not like their last gasp. It's way too early in the year for that. But like last week, like I feel like there could be a bit of a hangover. Like they almost did it, and I think the disappointment from that, maybe they fall flat again and look a little bit more like the team that we saw the opening month of the season. Looked like Kyler was limited participant Wednesday, so we'll see what's up with him. And same deal with Harrison coming off of the concussion. So trending in the right direction, but again, pay attention to the injury reports after Friday. So that all to keep in mind. And then any lingering thoughts on this Cardinals backfield again while Trey Benson is out?
Yeah, there's maybe someone useful each week between Carter and Zon of the Night, but it's like if you get the answer right, what do you get? 8 points? Just
Yeah,
who cares?
that's where I'm at as well. Like there wasn't going to be like a clear winner loser type of dynamic there, the same way that there was with the Chargers, where you have much better offense to benefit from, in my opinion. Let's get on over Cowboys, Falcons, I'm sorry, Commanders, Cowboys. Sorry about that. We got the Commanders. Looks like 1.5 point favorites on the road. Short week going up against the Cowboys, who lost to the Panthers.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like Dallas is a pushover. I feel like what Dallas does more than anything is they just subvert your expectations. So it's like when you think, oh, maybe Dallas doesn't suck. Maybe they're really figuring it out. Like they, in that case, just face plant immediately the next week against the 31st ranked defense. But if you're saying like, I think these idiots are finally toast. I think Dallas is finally laying down for good and good riddance, and then they win against the some 4-2 team that week. So I don't know. I think are we assuming CD Lamb is back? Because like
It's looking good for him.
Okay, so I assume with him coming back, you're gonna see Jalen Tolbert basically deleted from the offense, and you're gonna see Ryan Flournoy hanging around as like a 30-35 snap 3 wide specialist, and Pickens's numbers have to take a hit. They just have to. But I'm kind of optimistic too that with Dallas the past few weeks being forced to figure it out with Pickens, it might have lent them some insights and brought to mind some good new strategies that they just kind of lacked the imagination to think of while CeeDee Lamb was around. Because while CeeDee Lamb's there, you're not going to be like, okay, we're gonna make this practice all about George. Like that never happens when CeeDee Lamb is out there, but it does when CeeDee Lamb is hurt. And I think maybe Dak and the Schottenheimer have some new ideas about how to use Pickens to his best, even with Lamb around, in a way that they couldn't have really known beforehand. So if that does happen, Dak Prescott should just go blazing the rest of the year, pretty much, including in this game, I suppose, especially if the offensive line gets healthier. I don't know if the offensive line matters much for this one, though, because Washington's defense just didn't look very good. Like maybe they were looking ahead. Maybe they weren't thinking about the Bears as much as they should have because they were like, yeah, we get to kill Dallas next week. But short of that, their defense has looked kind of just bad lately, and certainly not good enough to handle Lamb and Pickens and Dak playing well at once.
Nope, I don't think so either. So I think Washington could be in trouble here. I know that I was I was guilty of the dynamic you were bringing up earlier, where like I was ready to buy into Dallas going into last week against the Panthers, and obviously
It's
didn't
every
go
week for
well.
me, man. Every single week, I fall for it the exact same way.
I'm just getting whipsawed. But I think that Lamb coming back, Pickens doing what he's doing right now, and Dak playing at an extremely high level. Like I think this is a pretty dangerous spot for Washington. On the other side, I do think this almost would be a great week for Krosky Merritt to go off and then sell high. I think on him, because the Commanders obviously are playing a tougher schedule this year, and it really kind of ratchets up after this week. So I think that he could feast in this game, and at that point, I'd probably be looking to field some trade offers, I think.
Yeah, I still don't have a great sense of how specifically bad and in what ways the Dallas run defense is bad, but they definitely are not good. And the only reason I mentioned that brief aside is it seems to me like Krosky Merritt gets going most reliably when there's openings off tackle. The Chargers struggled to get there. The Bears seemed to cut it off and contain it a little bit better. And if Tremaine Edmonds and what TJ Edwards or whatever, like those guys aren't very good. If they can shut down this run game, then Washington needs to at least like show up and get something going to clear some room for Krosky Merritt. And if Chris Rodriguez is somehow able to play, I think that still could be a problem because like I got all pissed off when they weren't giving him carries against the Chargers. But if he had the calf thing, and also the Chargers are of course tougher to run on the interior than off the tackle, it makes sense that Rodriguez would project worse in that game than Krosky Merritt. Rodriguez just couldn't play last week, and with 2 fumbles, arguably 3 over the last 2 weeks for Krosky Merritt, I think people have to be prepared for the possibility of a healthy Rodriguez showing up because healthy Rodriguez never screws up. Healthy Rodriguez gets yards every time. So if he's back at any point, it would kind of dictate that Krosky Merritt would fall back into a role where he's more like 10 carries per week than the 16 or whatever it was this most recent case.
Yeah, he definitely needs to clean up the fumbles. That's been a frustrating detail from him. We have him or Krosky Merritt ranked as RB 21 for this
That's
week.
probably fair, if not cautious. I think you could rank him a little higher than that, maybe.
Yeah, I like him in this spot, but again, I'm worried about the tougher schedule as we get down the stretch. I want to say they have the Chiefs up next and a couple other tough matchups as we get things rolling into the second half of the season. We've got a couple more games here. We've got the Falcons and the 49ers. The Niners continue to be pretty banged up, and the Falcons, I mean, that was one of those spreads that I looked at last week when they're like 4.5 point favorite or underdogs against the Bills, and I'm like, how is that possible? Like, the Bills are just going to mush them. But, sometimes a spread catches you so off guard that you have to pay attention to it. And obviously, it was correct with the Falcons winning that game outright against Buffalo on Monday night. Again, 49ers banged
Kind
up
of
this
whooped them.
one. Yeah, no, they really did. It was, dare I say, satisfying to watch. I don't know. But this one out in San Francisco, Sunday Night Football. Your thoughts here?
I still don't trust the Falcons offense in precisely any case where they struggle to run the ball. I think what you saw against the Bills and what you maybe see maybe most weeks to come, is that when Bijan Robinson gets going, and particularly if Bijan Robinson gets going so much, and the offense as a group gets going so much that there's Tyler Algier carries left afterward too. It's like that's the scenario where maybe Michael Penix isn't a very good quarterback, but he has too much cover. We can't get to him. And I think the last 2 weeks, the Falcons did a much better job than against, say, the Panthers, that of giving Penix that cover. And if Robinson is able to get going like crazy, like he has the last 2 weeks, that cover is substantial, and Penix's job gets a lot easier because of it. So if Bijan gets going in this game, I think I take the Falcons, because what I'm taking for a constant in any scenario is I definitely believe in this Falcons pass rush now, and I guess they're
Oh,
front
yeah.
7 as a group. And like, it was one of those things looking at it going into the year, it's hard to tell. It's still hard to tell now, like who even plays, like, and who plays how much. It's like they've got Arnold Ibikidi playing like 30 snaps, even though Leonard Floyd, James Pierce, and what's his name are all
Jalen
there.
Walker.
Jalen Walker. Sorry, no offense, John.
Hey.
George fans. So you have all this just machinery laying around, and the 3 down linemen are pretty disruptive too. And it's like they don't even need to be smart. Like Raheem Morris does not need to be a smart defensive coach to make this work out. Like it's this much just talent will sort of be difficult for the opposing team no matter how you use it. And I think the 49ers, as with most teams, are kind of in trouble because if the Buffalo offensive line can struggle against this group, then every single offensive line can struggle against them. And the 49ers are kind of held together by duct tape.
They are. I mean, the injury report, once again, concerning. George Kittle returned in a limited capacity. No Ricky Pearsall. It looks like it's going to be another Mac Jones game with Brock Purdy still a little bit behind. And Juwan Jennings, famously, like I've always said that he's like one of the toughest, like most, like he's got that dog in him type of players out there. Just playing with 5 broken ribs. What a maniac.
That's madness. But yeah, it's like you go watch Juwan Jennings at any level, and it's like, oh, this guy's got an anger problem.
Yeah, he's a maniac. I do love watching him play, but
that's too much. That's too many broken ribs.
Yeah, you can't. Once you cross the 3 threshold, or for me, if it was just 1, I'm out for the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like week over week, the thing that you can bank on with Atlanta is the defense, because I think personnel wise, like you mentioned, the front 7, but the back end has been really good for a long time as constructed. Xavier Watts has obviously been, a really nice addition opposite Jesse Bates. You got AJ Terrell. So the problem with the Falcons, sort of like if you look historically at the Bucs, like they like literally haven't been able to run the ball for like 20 years. Like they're always like bottom 10. The Falcons are just like kind of constantly bottom 10 in sacks, maybe even bottom 5, bottom 3. And now it's a new look defense because Ulbrich has pieced it together to where they're getting the most out of that edge personnel. And his son is what was the he duped Shadur Sanders.
He called Shadur Sanders and maybe like other players and said, like, you've won the lottery. And they went, wow, thank you.
That is a chotch move. But Jeff Ulbrich, good at his job. So I'm with you here. I think I'm going to take the Falcons as underdogs here, 2.5-point underdogs in this spot. We've got a couple more here. The Monday night doubleheader, Bucks Lions. This one's awesome. I love this matchup. The Buccaneers, similar to the Niners, a little bit held together by duct tape. Give us your summation here on this group of pass catchers. Now that we have to kind of fully adjust our eyes, coming into the year, we figured by this point of the season, it's Evans, Ibuka, Godwin. Now it's like Tez Johnson. And like I felt stumped by this one. Where did Cameron Johnson go to school? Like, where's he from? I don't remember him.
You're gonna have to give me a second. I still don't know who he is. Let's see. Barton.
How did I miss that one?
What is that? Is that like
It sounds like a liberal arts school in Maine or something.
School. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know where. I don't know what this. Good for him last week. I mean that was cool to see. Sometimes these guys come out of truly nowhere. Sometimes there's these like directional schools or whatever, directional state schools in Oklahoma or whatever, but I don't know what Barton is. I don't think I've ever heard of that. So I'll try to pull up his see if NFL Draft Scout has his.
I will say in the interim that Ibuka not practicing on Thursday. So that's a recent report. That's a problem. I think that, we might be looking at, and Chris Godwin's doubtful. So Evans, who knows if he's going to be able to go at this point. So we are kind of looking at a setup where it's like Cameron Johnson, Tez Johnson, and Sterling Shepard. It does look like Evans is expected to practice. Tez Johnson, I think, is who we hoped Tutu could be. I mean, same type of just like way too small for this to last forever. But Tez was a bad mofo at Oregon. I loved watching him play there, and had the big touchdown last week. Had the great story where he thought that the crowd was chanting MVP for him after he scored. It's like, no, it's probably for Baker Mayfield. But regardless, yeah, long way of saying that this is a shorthanded Buccaneers group of pass catchers versus a shorthanded secondary there in Detroit.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield obviously playing great. I do wish Todd Bowles would get some more credit though, because he's clearly an excellent coach to go through 3 offensive coordinators now and to have these kinds of results to show with a quarterback who was cut by the Panthers most recently prior to any of that. So that's pretty crazy. I just don't know how much sort of stable play they can get out of guys like Tez Johnson, Cameron Johnson, Sterling Shepard. If Mike Evans can come back and be himself, that would be huge, because I really don't think the Lions have a way of dealing with him. Like the Lions, they try to do that get in your face kind of thing and try to jam them at the line, but you got to be able to turn and run, or else you're just going to be like Terry and Arnold and getting holding penalties all the time. I just don't think there's any real talent in that secondary. So maybe Tez Johnson, maybe Cameron Johnson, maybe even Sterling Shepard can all kind of get open in this game. What I guess you'd get to next is it's like, well, what about the pass rush? What about the Tampa Bay running game? And I don't think the Tampa Bay running game has much going for it here. So as much as you like Baker's odds, especially after so many times already dealing with difficult conditions and thriving anyway, I just think this could be a surprisingly difficult spot if they're getting into like a lot of like 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 kind of situations. And as much as Tez Johnson has been encouraging, he's probably hurting you in the run game. And if he is anything less than really consistent as a route runner and target, you're maybe like taking on water in ways that you don't notice it yet until it's too late. So I'm taking the Lions to win just because I feel like they can, not to assume like by contrast that it's easy to run on the Buccaneers or anything. It's just when you have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, you're more prepared for the attrition game, and you can also run away from Vita Vea a little bit with Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, you absolutely can. And I'm wondering off the top of my head, like what the Lions splits are coming off of a loss. Like I feel like they just don't have losing streaks under Dan Campbell.
Yeah, and it's I think that's just kind of who they are in general. But if there is sort of a consideration to make for how much single game focus, post loss focus, a team can have, yeah, you would probably grade the Lions about as high there as anybody.
Yeah. So I'm gonna side with the Bucks here. It might be foolish, but it seems like they just kind of have something going. But they might ultimately be too shorthanded. We're gonna have to see how those practice reports finish out when it comes to guys like Mike Evans. Rounding it out, last game, Seahawks Texans. Texans coming off the bye, Seahawks coming off of a strong win in Jacksonville. And we got the Seahawks as a 3.5 point favorite here. The Texans obviously like they blasted the Ravens last time that we saw them. And I know that it wasn't like instructive in the sense that, they were playing against a team with no offense and a shorthanded defense, but like, was there any like kind of concrete takeaways in the sense that like, maybe the Texans like kind of needed that confidence boost? Cause they did everything that they wanted to in that game.
I think it was mostly the Ravens being in a vulnerable position, but as you kind of hinted at, there is something to some space for considering, uh, uh, themselves seeing them seeing themselves do well for the first time in a long time can kind of it's almost like having the effect of a change of scenery on a struggling player. It's like they don't actually go anyplace different, but their head space kind of goes someplace different, and they sort of the
It's like, oh
negative
yeah, we can do
associations,
this.
the positive affirmations, they start to like, they start to pour in. They start to remember like, wait, I'm good. I used to be good at football. I remember that now. And like, sometimes that sort of like depression aspect is just part of shaking a losing streak. But what makes me pick the Texans in this game anyway is just I think the matchups suit them.
Mm.
The interior offensive line for the Texans is going to continue being a problem, but I think at least like Ariante Ursary, if Blake Fisher could step up and get them to move Titus Howard to guard, that would be great. I still think Blake Fisher should turn out to be good. It's just kind of developing still in the meantime. But more importantly, I expect the Houston run defense to finish the year as one of the better ones. I know they didn't start out the year very well. I think they'll finish better than they started if it comes down to it then. And I think that the Texans with, I don't know, maybe Nick Chubb is not particularly good in this current form, but he's done well to this point. Like I don't see how you can quite brush him off as a power running threat. And that's what allows the Texans offense, in my opinion, to match the Seahawks offense in this case. Is that part of why the Seahawks beat the Jaguars so bad is that the Seahawks are committed to the run and are capable of running such that they get favorable situations for Sam Darnold to throw the ball in. You know, they're not just putting him, 4 wide against 3rd and 11. It's like manageable situations, and Clint Kubiak's doing a good job of leveraging what they show on tape to create, an element of surprise consistently going into any given matchup. But whereas the Seahawks had a big field position advantage against the Jags because the Jags can't power run in response and can't, shut down the run enough to make up the difference otherwise. I think the Texans are going to give the Seahawks a really tough rushing defense to go up against in a way that puts Sam Darnold in some of the most difficult spots he's seen this year. And I still think that when you get Sam Darnold in a difficult spot, it's not that he folds, it's that he starts glitching, though. And I think that these Houston corners and the way that the Houston defense spaces itself out hover in the areas where Darnold has been getting such good results from players like Jackson Smith and Jigba and even like the tight ends. It's only Horton, I think, that really can hurt this Houston defense. And he's like a 6th man kind of presence for them right now. So I think the Seahawks are I think their offense hits a bit of a difficult spot here.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting insight. I think that people have maybe forgotten about the Texans during their bye week, but they're very much for real, and especially on the defensive side. So I feel like the Seahawks. I think it's great for fantasy what's going on with JSN, but I do think that like objectively they're probably a little bit over reliant on him to just do everything. I think they need a little bit more from the rest of those pieces for me to like really really take them seriously. So I could see the Texans covering this game as well. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, I'll take the Texans to win, but it probably needs to be a lower scoring kind of game.
Well, we got a pretty low total here. It looks like it's just sitting at 40.5 over on FanDuel. So that would play to the Texans likings, no question. That's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Again, if you're not signed up over at RotoWire, you can get a 15% off subscription. How about that? Go to rotowire.com, use that code YouTube15, get yourself 15% off. Really going to help you throughout the course of the season. You get access to our rankings, our tools, which are great. They're super helpful for me for setting my DFS lineups with our DFS optimizer. Really like our picks and props tool as well. It gives you like kind of a nice visual of players' hit rates against their posted prop numbers, and also like what our projections are expecting versus what the books are posting. So you can find across all different shops. Really, really useful tool, our picks and props tool. But for Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Thanks for listening.